ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Winner of the 2024 West Virginia Broadcasters Association Excellence in Broadcasting Award for Best Talk Show.
Welcome into the Thursday, May 30th edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. The phone number this hour, 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. Our text line open for the entirety of the show today. A lot to get into. We've got scheduled times. We're going to get into that here in just a few minutes. Also, we're going to have a little fun later on because, it's summer, just about. And so everybody's got to have a list. We talked a little bit about the Vegas odds yesterday. Where are you at with Marshall? Over or under on Marshall, with the over being 7. The under would be 6 or below. Vegas got Marshall at 6.5. I don't know. I don't know if you take the over or you take the under on that. So we'll get in a little bit of that. That's kind of where the Vegas odds are at. Of course, we'll see what the publications are going to be saying soon. I know Phil Steele, he likes to put that stuff out there. He talked to Coach Huff over the holiday. His preview's coming out soon. Everybody seems to gravitate towards that one. So that's what we got. And, of course, baseball does continue. No baseball today for the Pirates, though. Off today after a doubleheader yesterday in Detroit. That's okay because we'll have plenty of baseball to talk about the next few days, because coming up next week, it'll be the start of Cold Cats baseball at Jack Cook Field. Are you excited? Ready to go? See some, I want to call it minor league baseball because it's summer baseball. It's college baseball, but you're getting a lot of prospects coming into Huntington and getting ready for the first season as the Tri-State Cold Cats. So are you fired up about that? We'll talk about that, of course, and we'll go into depth the storylines, hopefully, that will be developing over the next few weeks, because we'll find out more about the players next week as we've got the games. All the home games are going to be right here, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. If you didn't, guess what? All the home games are going to be right here all season long. Every single home game broadcast here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So it's going to be good to have local baseball again back on the airwaves. It's been a long time. I mean, I still remember going to games at St. Cloud Commons. I mean, it really wasn't a good venue then. Hated to see it go, though. I miss it. It was not a good venue, but I miss it. It was just fun. I mean, now you got to have modern facilities. You can't have those rundown facilities. You can't have inadequate anything, especially with the way that college baseball today has been elevating its facilities, minor league baseball teams, the reshuffling. I mean, there are some franchises that are no longer in minor league baseball because of the reshuffling. So you can't have subpar anything. And the Cubs the team wasn't subpar, but the facilities were. But that was okay. We didn't care back in the 90s. We didn't care about that. Not as much. I mean, Grandstand was old. It was just baseball. Now, though, the only reason why Huntington has baseball is because of Jack Cook Field. So I'm excited for that. That's coming up later. We'll get into that. But the schedule's out today as far as some times. We've got those. 3 of them at least. Marshall's going to kick off the season on August 31st. We knew that, versus Stony Brook. That's going to be 5 o'clock, and it's going to be on ESPN+. Okay, I expected that. That wasn't going to be on linear TV. That was going to be an ESPN Plus affair. And then the September 7th game is going to be against Virginia Tech. That's going to be broadcast on the CW. Now, the CW is trying to become a player in the college space. Again, not the biggest outlet for college athletics, but the CW at least trying to become more relevant in the space. Makes sense. Okay. Marshall, Virginia Tech, CW will take that. And that's going to be a 4:30 p.m. game. And then Marshall will take on Georgia State, 8 p.m. That's October 17th. And that's going to be on ESPN2. And so ESPN2, one ESPN Plus game, and one game on the CW. You okay with those times? Would you like a later time? I mean, the 5 o'clock game, that's kind of a fair compromise, don't you think? I think that's a fair game. That's fair. I'm okay with that. Of course, the Sun Belt releasing its schedule as well, and of course, Marshall doesn't have a game in Week 3. Marshall has more of a midweek matchup, and that's going to be sort of the way it's going to go for teams in the Sun Belt. There are a lot of midweek matchups. You've got that Week 1, Week 2, Week 3, and then you go off a few days later, and it's going to be one of those midweek games a week for the league. And of course, Marshall's midweek game is on 10/17, and again, that's the game against Georgia State. Other midweek games. Just looking at the Sun Belt schedule. We'll go over the weeks, but a lot of league midweek matchups. Marshall just has one midweek matchup so far. Things could change. And you know that things are subject to change. I don't think there's going to be that much shifting of days. I don't see that. I just don't see it happening here unless we get an update when the full times are out. Again, remember, TV is going to be dictating this, and you got that 12-day window. But Marshall has the one midweek matchup, and then matchups in Week 1 and Week 2. Those times are set. So get your tailgate plans ready. You get your travel agendas ready. I know it's hard on some. I wish that we could settle these times a little sooner instead of trying to make these television events. I mean, if you're Marshall, if you're a school like Marshall, maybe the times need to be set a little bit better sooner than later. It's not as if you're going to be on national TV on ABC primetime 7 o'clock. I mean, set the schedule early if you can. And I get it. You want to try to come up with a schedule that's going to be competitive. Hey, this is an interesting matchup. We should elevate that. And that's what you're going to see. That's going to be the terms you see. A lot of games are going to be elevated. Hey, this game's been elevated to ESPN. This game has been elevated is what the buzzword is now. And I like the idea of, hey, set the schedule. But I get it. It's for television. That's the reason why you're doing some of these. And, of course, not every game's going to be on television. You see, the first game's going to be on ESPN+, so it's going to be a streaming-only game. So we'll get into more of that. Something from the text line yesterday I want to get into. We'll try to come up with a good list. I mean, we have an intern now on staff, so it's time to put him to work on some research. We'll get some candidates for this. He's writing down notes as we speak because he realizes he's just now been given a new assignment. Texter wrote in and asked me yesterday, right before we went off the air, asked really, when are we going to do the all-time Marshall football team against the all-time anti-Marshall team? So basically, Marshall and the nemesis. So we need to do that. If you're going to pick your team, we need candidates. Who's going to be our team? All-time Marshall greats. All-time. The best of Marshall football. All-time against the worst of the worst. And I don't mean the performance. I mean the people that you just couldn't stand to see come in to Jones C. Edwards Stadium or Marshall face off against. Like, for example, if I'm putting together the nemesis team, I'm bringing in Ben Roethlisberger. It's going to be my quarterback. Just because I just want to annoy you. I just want to annoy you so much. And the Miami Redhawks, that was a team that really annoyed people, annoyed me, still annoys me. So I'm bringing in Ben Roethlisberger. He's going to be my quarterback of the nemesis team. I got to come up with some guys, though. Who's going to be the running back of my all anti-herd team or my whole nemesis team? Who's going to be wide receivers? Who's going to be, some of the defensive terrors? I mean, can we really put together like an offensive line, some guys like that? Can we put that? Or are we looking more for just like the impact players, like on defense? Who is a terror for the Thundering Herd? Who is someone that you just didn't want to see? And I think you got to dig back a little bit. Maybe you have to go back to the days of Appalachian State, Marshall in the Southern Conference. Maybe you need to go back to the days of Marshall versus Youngstown State and the 1AA championship games. there's some players there. We could put together a really nasty all nemesis team for the Thundering Herd. But we need to bring the best and the brightest. I mean, who's going to be the quarterback for the all-time Herd team? Who's going to be? Is it going to be Chad Pennington? I mean, automatically, we're just going to say Chad Pennington and move on. What about Byron Leftwich? Who do we want in that situation? Do we want Chad? Do we want Byron? I mean, what about Michael Payton? I mean, Michael Payton in his day was a hell of a quarterback. Won the Michael Payton Award, and I think that we need to really think about this. We think about who are the all-time greats. Who would be the starting lineup of the all-time great team for Marshall? Who would be the all-time great? And I'm sorry, he won the Walter Payton Award. I'm sorry. It was Michael Payton won the Walter Payton Award, which is the 1AA version of the Heisman. I apologize for that. I got Michael on the brain there because I was thinking about it. When I mentioned his name, I was kind of thinking about him because for those of you who are younger, maybe don't realize, Michael Payton is no longer with us, died a few years ago. So, I was thinking about him the minute I mentioned his name because, he was a cool dude. He actually was, he was in the broadcasting curriculum. He showed up at WMUL one day. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm in the broadcasting curriculum. And, we didn't know that. Cool. So Michael Payton was at one point in the broadcasting curriculum, and he was at WMUL for a little bit. So, I remember Michael well. So good thought there. I hadn't thought about him for a little bit. So, that's a guy I liked a lot because he was from my generation more so than guys like Byron Leftwich. I mean, I was in the media professionally when those guys were really coming up. I was getting started. A guy like Michael Payton, he's sort of like from my generation. So I always keep him in the conversation because he was one of the best quarterbacks to ever play for for Marshall University. Troy Brown's got to be a wide receiver for our team, right? You got Randy Moss, you got Troy Brown. Who's going to be our running back? I mean, who do you go for? Chris Parker? Chris Parker maybe? Yeah? Ahmed Bradshaw? What do you think? Who's going to be our running backs? Who's going to be our wide receivers? Who's going to be our tight end? Who's going to be our defensive players? We need the nastiest Herd players ever to be in our defensive team. Who's going to be on this thing? We got to put some names out there. So we'll do the research. You put it in there as well. Who's going to be in our all-time Herd team? This is going to be the best of the best. We're putting together the team. We're going to take on all comers, but we're going to take on the nemesis, those players that always gave Marshall fits. We're going to put them up against the all-time villains here. It's going to be good guys versus bad guys. We got to do that. So that's a good suggestion from the text line. I don't think anyone comes out. You might have an argument for it, but I think my quarterbacks are going to be Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich, and I'm going to keep three quarterbacks. I'm going to keep Michael Payton. I'm putting him on my list. You can make your argument for anyone else. You can make your argument for Rakeem Cato. You want to make that? Yeah, go ahead. You make that. You make that argument. Tommy Schuler, you put him on the team. What is Chad's throwing to him? What are you going to do? You take him Chad over Rakeem Cato? You taking Cato over Chad? I want to hear that argument. You taking Rakeem Cato over Michael Payton? You taking Rakeem Cato over Byron Leftwich? I want to hear that argument. Is there really a quarterback? I mean, I think that would be my solid four of quarterbacks. But then, hey, there's Tony Peterson. Don't forget, Tony Peterson got this thing started. Almost won Marshall its first ever national championship, 1987 in Pocatello, Idaho. Almost won the Herd that elusive title. So you got to have him in the conversation. Who's going to be our quarterback? So I think we need to do this position by position, day by day. Who's going to be our all-time team for the Herd? And then we got to put together the team that we want to see Marshall beat. Not because we don't like them, because they were so tough. We want one more shot at them. We want one more shot at them. Who's the quarterback? I'm saying Ben Roethlisberger is my guy. I want one more shot at him. One more. Get him in here. We'll play it at Jones C. Edwards Stadium. Get him in here. One more. And our fantasy time game here. We'll kick it at 7 because her fans like 7 o'clock kicks. We'll kick it at 7, and we'll do that. I think that's a good scenario. So that's where we're going in the summer months. We'll have a lot of time to get into it, but I like the idea, so that's pretty cool. All right, we'll get your text in, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That was fun. That was really good. I think we got something here to work on. And, it's good to think about guys like Michael Payton. Yeah, you try to stay separate sometimes from all of this, but it's kind of hard, especially when you've been here for a long time. It's hard to stay separate. You think about these guys, and he was one of the best, and definitely hate that he passed away too soon. More coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Giovanni's has great Italian dishes. Spaghetti with meat sauce, lasagna, ravioli, manicotti, all dinners served with hot garlic bread or Italian rolls. Giovanni's, the Italian place to be.
The more vulnerable among us can fall victim to abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. When navigating your way out, it doesn't have to feel like a maze. Assistance is available from Adult Protective Services. To report neglect or abuse, call 800-352-6513. Sponsored by the Administration for Community Living, West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources Bureau for Social Services, the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, and this station.
This project was supported by the Administration for Community Living, ACL, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as part of a financial assistance award totaling $383,493, with 75% funded by ACL HHS and 25% in the amount of $85,236 funded by state government sources. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of nor an endorsement by ACL, HHS, or the U.S. government.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think you would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Winner of the 2024 West Virginia Broadcasters Association Excellence in Broadcasting Award for Best Talk Show.
Our text line is 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. When we hit the commercial break, we had a little debate here in the studio. Before we continue, we need to get that out of the way. Now, if you were with us a few minutes ago, From the text line, texter was asking when we're going to do the all-time Marshall team versus the all-time Nemesis team. All those players that you hate to see come into the Henderson Center or come into Jones C. Edwards Center. We got to do the basketball version as well. A.J. Ramsa is on that list, by the way, for basketball. Let me just put that out there right now. But trying to figure out what kind of offense are we going to run if we're putting together the all-time Marshall team. And the question was, are we going to run the option? No, we're not running the option. No. We're throwing. We're throwing the ball. We will run. We will run. We will execute a solid running game, but we will be throwing. You will know it. This will be Madden. We will throw on first down. We will throw on second down. We will throw on third down, and it won't get to this, but we will throw on fourth down. There's no punting. We're not punting. We might not even have a punter on this team. We're not going to punt. We're just going to throw, and we'll run, but we will throw as well. No, none of that. I think that's what Herd fans really want to see. Like, punt? What? We're not punting today. What are we talking about here? That guy's got the day off. We're not punting. So football times are out. We're looking forward to that. You know, something that was interesting came across the feed yesterday. There was, and again, this is the point of the year where we're kind of transitioning into, okay, we're just going to be talking about football for a while. We're not going to actually be talking about football, just like talking about football. And so there was an interesting tier list that came out. This is according to College Football Daily on X. Had a ranking of how every FBS program ranks all time. The criteria, it's all-time record with comparable competition and all-time Division I success at FBS and FCS. And the modern era means more. And their metrics, smaller schools did rank higher with higher successes with their opponents. It did not mean, it was not an indicator that those programs would have success against a Power 4 school. I think we're just acknowledging now there are no more Power 5 schools. It's just Power 4. So Marshall ranked all right. Marshall ranked okay on this thing. Marshall was considered above average. I don't know if that means a lot, but there was a blue blood tier, and that was Alabama, Nebraska, Notre Dame, USC, Texas, Oklahoma, Michigan, Ohio State. And then you had a very good tier. Very good. Hey, App State is in that. Very good all the time. App State. So second tier, and that's just one Sun Belt program. Now, above average, that's the third tier. And this is 6 of the Sun Belt teams in this list. Marshall, above average. Coastal Carolina, above average. Georgia Southern, above average. I mean, come on, Georgia Southern won all those titles, won AA. Should mean something more. Southern Miss, above average. James Madison, welcome aboard. All of you are above average. And Troy, all above average. Western Kentucky, Virginia Tech, above average. Liberty, above average. Okay, I get it. Going by the metrics. Average teams, the metrics. One Sun Belt school, Texas State. Here are some of the notable teams in Tier 4. This is just your program's average. Miami of Ohio. Hey, Red Hawks, you're average. East Carolina, average. Memphis, average. Louisiana Tech, yep, average. Tulsa, UCF, average. Wait a minute. UCF won the national championship. How does that rate? Come on, they won the national championship. Just ask them. They'll tell you. They got rings and everything, so you know it's true. UTSA, North Texas, SMU, NC State, average. West Virginia, average. So, in the history of WVU football, this metric ranks WVU as average. That's not going to set well with, of course, WVU fans in the state anytime that Marshall's going to be on a list above West Virginia, they're going to bring up the fact that Marshall's never beaten WVU in football. And, of course, rightfully so. You should bring that up. Even though Marshall's not your rival, you should bring that up. That's probably the reason why they don't think Marshall's a rival, because Marshall can't win in this series. Can't win if you don't play. But they haven't won. So West Virginia is an average team. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, they've had some rough patches here as of late, but I don't know if I want to agree with their average. I would have put them a little bit above average. I'm not saying that they're blue blood. I'm not saying that they're good all the time, but they're definitely not below average, and a lot of Sun Belt schools are in that tier: Old Dominion, Arkansas State, Louisiana, South Alabama. And again, this is all time. I mean, Louisiana program that has had success. Old Dominion, still too early to tell there. Two Sun Belt programs in the bottom-of-the-line college football programs: Akron, FIU, Buffalo, Charlotte, Temple, notable teams, Georgia State, and ULM. Two Sun Belt programs in the bottom. I mean, the good news is at least there are more teams in the above average tier than there are in the below average tier. But at the end of the day, what does this truly mean? You can look at records all day and say Marshall was competitive in its time against teams. And I think this is notable only because Marshall was so easy to beat so many years ago as a program you scheduled for homecoming, because Marshall had just bounced back recently from almost it was a program ender. Losing the program in a plane tragedy is a program ender. End of story. Game over, right? It's the program ender. You've lost your entire team. You've lost so much institutional knowledge. You've lost so much of that leadership, that currency, the members of the community, the people that were leaders in so many ways, football players, of course, the crew and everyone else associated with that. It's a game over. It's an ender. How do you bounce back from that? And here's Marshall as a program that has struggled from that day on, finally able to break through and become a program that is considered above average. Marshall won a couple of national championships at the 1AA level. And the way this thing is going, Marshall might be in a situation where it's back to what might be a different version of 1AA. The way this thing's going, have a playoff. I'm good with that. Let's not talk about bowl games, by the way. I don't want to hear anything about group of 5 bowl games. If this thing's going to splinter off, playoff. That's what I want. Absolutely. Forget this bowl thing. Forget bowl games. Have a playoff. You can be crowned the football, I don't know what we call this thing. You can have the cash division, and you can have the whatever division this is going to be. I mean, because there's going to be subdivisions here. I mean, it's still going to be Division I, but it's going to be completely separate sooner than later. And I think that's fine, actually. If we're going to go to that, put schools that are in the same situation together, let them go. Put programs that have an abundance of cash because they're in a situation where they're performing or overperforming and the television money's there. It's no secret. The Sun Belt's not going to get the television money that the Big Ten gets. Why? Because the Sun Belt doesn't bring as many eyeballs to the TV screen as, say, the Big Ten or the Big 12 or the SEC. It's just market. It's supply and demand. We want to see Alabama. Okay, we'll bring you the Alabama game. Alabama wants money for it. Marshall can't sell out the stadium. Alabama, it's a sellout virtually every time they open the gates. So there are differences. And the schools like Alabama are wanting to say, look, we want to be able to do this, 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 and this. Why should we be held back by programs that can't compete with us? Why are we bringing it down? And I'm honestly, okay, let's do it. Fine. You go do your thing. We'll do our thing. We'll have a good time. Right? Or am I completely wrong here and we need to fix this thing so everybody's on an equal footing? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Save big money on your next outdoor project at Menards. Easily transport mulch, stone, and other materials with a Masterforce heavy-duty steel wheelbarrow. Maneuver over any terrain with flat-free tires that never need air. Save big money on a Masterforce heavy-duty steel wheelbarrow and all Masterforce tools exclusively at Menards. Visit us in-store and Menards.com and see all the great deals going on now in our weekly flyer.
Save big money at Menards.
Here's another Kidder Communications Community Chat. The Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association Chapter 12-8 is having their annual charity event June 8th at Smitty's Tavern in New Holland, Ohio. This is to support the Save a Warrior program. If you'd like to help, give them a call at 513-465-4038.
This Kenner Communications Community Chatter brought to you by K&B Pest Control. They'll kill for your business.
Get in the groove. Downtown Huntington's premier weekly music event is back. It's Mount West 9th Street Live, presented by New Trail, Garage Beer, Big Truck, The Beast, La Marca Prosecco, and Matua Sauvignon Blanc. This Friday, it's Great Outdoors Marine Night with Litz on the Marshall OBGYN stage. The Little Caesars Kid Zone is back, and Go-Mart Happy Hour starts at 5. Enjoy food and drinks from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe, Sip Downtown Brasserie, and Summit Beer Station. Mark your calendar for June 21st for a ticket to ride to 9th Street Live, a celebration of the Beatles with the Newbies. Friday, August 2nd, 9th Street is Dead, featuring John Ingram's Dead Center and the music of the Grateful Dead. The Thundering Herd Rally is Friday, August 16th. 9th Street Live is driven by Yes Chevy, Yes Ford every Friday night through Labor Day. 9th Street in Huntington between 3rd and 4th Avenues. Sponsored by Delta Hotels, Marshall OBGYN, Wendy's, Mountain Mindful, City of Huntington, Marshall University, Impact Media, Xfinity, and Kendrick Communications.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So, I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Some updates. Marshall women's basketball. Last night, the Herd signing Morehead State transfer Blessing King. She will be a sophomore. She's from Columbus, Ohio. She played in all 30 games. Started 25 at Morehead State. Averaged almost 28 minutes a contest. Ranked second in the OVC in rebounding at over 10 per game. And consistently ranked in the NCAA top 10 in offensive rebounding. So she averages a little over 5 points a game, and she shoots better than 58%. A lot of rebounding there. So get used to maybe defense being played for this women's basketball team. I'm not saying that Kim didn't play defense. It's just we're going to see more of it. Kim's squad will just tire you out and like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down the floor. It was fun. Marshall won with it, though. That's the good thing. So I don't think we're going to see the same type of team. We're going to see a different style of basketball, obviously, for the Thundering Herd. And then today we find out that Sophie Aldridge announcing on X. She is committed to the Marshall women's basketball team. Why do you know Sophie's name? Well, she's from Cabell Midland High School. And she originally committed to play for Stetson University on June 23rd. But she did reopen her recruitment on July 16, 2023. She claimed on X that her family and her decided to stay closer to home. Personal reasons there. And then she committed to Rio Grande on February 12th. She also received offers, according to X mentions and posts, Glenville State, North Florida, Coastal Carolina, and she was named All Mountain State Athletic Conference Special Honorable Mention in 2024. So Marshall women's basketball has now signed 5 players since the hiring of Julie Folks. I mean, you've got some transfers coming in. You have high school recruits. You know, Casey Ingram, Sophie Aldridge. You have different backgrounds here. So not all transfer portal. But again, you got to remember, here's a coach that run lots of camps. Very successful camps. Camps that people look forward to seeing. So it doesn't matter that she was Division III or whatever level. Her camps were successful. She's got a network. So she can go out, identify players that might fit what she's trying to do at Marshall and go get them. And it could be from high school ranks or, of course, it can be the transfer portal. So now the Thundering Herd stocking up on basketball players on the women's side. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team is different. All we care about is hopefully that the Thundering Herd will be successful on the basketball court. I mean, look, I think the pressure is not on, even though there will be comparisons. Okay, hey, Marshall won the conference last year. Can Marshall do it again? Obviously, those conversations will happen. But I think Julie's going to be a different style coach. I think it's still going to be exciting. But I don't think we're going to see her teams just go out and try to run and gun you. I don't think we're going to see hockey shift style line changes. I like it, but that's just the hockey part of my brain liking, hey, shift change. I like it. Go out there, run them ragged, shift change. She's gotten the work, hasn't she? Even had time to throw out the first pitch at a ball game. See if we can get her on the mound for the Colecats. That would be interesting. See if we can get her on the mound for the Colecats as that season's about ready to start. What do you think, Marshall? What's the over-under on that for Marshall for the women? You think the Herd's going to win the Sun Belt title or fall short? Where are you at on that? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I still want to know where you're at as far as the win-loss total. The Vegas odds, 6.5. Are you on the over on that? Are you taking the over or are you taking the under? We did this the other day. I took the over. I said 7 wins. Marshall's a 7-win team. Anything else is extra for me. Because I think Marshall splits the first 4 games. I hate to say that, but I think Marshall split. I think Marshall falls for Virginia Tech. I think they're going to look for a little payback there. Ohio State's going to be tough. And then Stony Brook, if Marshall loses that one, we got problems. We have problems to talk about, and we will talk about them all season long. We got problems if that happens. That's not going to happen. I'll write that in right now and pin. That's a win. And then, of course, you get into your conference schedule, and it's going to be tough. So you take the over or you take the under? I take the over on Marshall. 6.5 the odds. I would bet the over tomorrow. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Giovanni's Pizza. Fresh, hot, and tasty. Have it delivered right to your door. Giovanni's, the Italian place to be.
In the tapestry of life, we encounter stories of legacy and accomplishment, but sometimes also abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. Adult Protective Services understands the importance of safeguarding the well-being of our loved ones, our neighbors, and our community. To report neglect or abuse, call 800-352-6513. Sponsored by the Administration for Community Living, West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, Bureau for Social Services, the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, and this station. This project was supported by the Administration for Community Living, ACL, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as part of a financial assistance award totaling $383,493, with 75% funded by ACL, HHS, and 25% in the amount of $85,236 funded by state government sources. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by, ACL, HHS, or the U.S. government.
Hey there, you and aisle 2. I see you by the fiber and laxatives. You still using those to manage your constipation with belly pain? If your symptoms keep coming back, you may have irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C. So you may need more than over-the-counter treatments to manage it. Ask your doctor about how Linzess can help you get ahead of it.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LANZESS.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
When Dad needed help getting around, I became his driver. Any daughter would do the same. But soon enough, he needed help doing more things, and it was up to me to be his personal shopper and financial manager, too. And before I knew it, Dad moved in with me. So I became his cook, his personal assistant, his physical therapist, and even his nurse. When I started taking care of Dad, I didn't realize all the roles I'd have to play. But no matter what, I know I'm still his daughter.
We understand the many roles you play. And to help, we created an online caregiving resource center. At aarp.org/caregiving, you can find resources and connect with the caregiving community. Together, we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to learn more. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Final segment of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Our text line this hour is 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. We've had some interesting conversations today. It kind of feels like a Friday show. Thursday feeling like a Friday. So I can't wait to see what we do tomorrow, but we're trying to put together, and we're going to, this concept the texter brought up, the whole idea of best all-time Marshall team. Put it together. What are we going to go by gut on this one? We're going to go with statistics. What are we going to go with? That's hard to say. Like in basketball, we're going to go with statistics. Well, we got to go, if we do basketball, we got to go, okay. And it doesn't matter the position. We're just going to go put the 5 best out there. So if we go statistics, we're probably going to go with John Taft, Skip Henderson. We're going to go with John Elmore. We're going to go with Tavion Kinsey. I need a shot blocker, so I'm bringing in Hassan Whiteside. I'm sorry. I need somebody in the middle. I need a shot blocker. I'll override any stats there. And, of course, that's not to say that there are suitable other players that can be on this team. Does Dan D'Antoni make my team? Does Mike D'Antoni make my all-time Marshall basketball team? That's the question. Do I put Dan and Mike out there? I mean, are they like 12th and 13th? I don't know if they can still go. That's part of the thing. That, I know Dan got the hip, replaced there, but could they still go today? Could you imagine Dan trying to drive the lane and, get put back by Hassan Whiteside? Could you imagine that? I would pay money to see that, actually. Dan would just shoot over him, probably. Pass to Mike. Mike would shoot over him. And where's Hal Greer rank on this? Got to put Hal on that list, right? I mean, he's an NBA all-time great, so he's got to make the team. Basketball, I think that basketball would be harder because there are so many players you can put on the team. And it's going to be a little bit more subjective, I think, as well. All-time coach, okay, I think if we're going to find a coach, it's going to be either Rick Huckabee or it's going to be Cam Henderson, my coach. I'm going to go with Huck. Rick Huckabee's going to be my coach. If we can bring coaches back, one night only, he can come back and bring it. And I would say the old man can be his assistant. I don't know. The building's named after Cam Henderson, so we have to name it. We have to name him on the team. I mean, Hal Greer's got a statue, so Hal's got to be on the team. And it's the Henderson Center, so Cam Henderson's got to be the coach, right? He's got to be. You don't overlook that. Like, hey, who's the coach of the all-time great Marshall basketball team? Well, they named the building after this guy, so what about him? He could be the guy. I'm going to say Rick Huckabee's my guy on this, just because. And I gotta find room for some guys. I gotta find room for Shaq Johnson. He's got to be on my team. Intern just looked at me like, what? Let me tell you, intern, Shaq Johnson is you have two cups you're playing for here. You're playing for the Luke Creasy Cup, the greatest all-time intern ever. I mean, look at him. He was an intern for me. He turned out well. The other guy that interned for me was Shaq Johnson. And he wins the best student athlete ever to intern for me award. Absolutely. Because he did everything. He ran the show. He wasn't just here for a grade. He ran the show like a producer runs the show. He knew where everything worked. I can still take him in basketball. That's kind of the joke I have with him. when I wish him happy birthday, I remind him I can take him in basketball. And he lets me believe it. I appreciate that. But he's got to be on my team. That guy had heart, man. Can't go just all statistics. You got to have guys that had heart. I mean, I still need weapons out there. So, I mean, Skip Henderson's going to be on my team. John Taft's going to be on my team. I need those guys. I'm going to put Johnny Buckets on my team. I can't deny him there. Yeah, I need some shot blocking. Hassan Whiteside's going to be there. Tavion Kinsey, he's on my team. You can't deny those guys. Is that my starting five? Or am I going to be like Coach Caldwell and just like have them rotate in and out like a hockey shift? Put this thing together. We need to put this together as well. The all-time great basketball team. And then defend it. Why we think this is the all-time best collection of Marshall basketball players. This is our team. If we were going to field a team, if we were putting together the all-time best Marshall team, we could get them all back in their prime through some sort of weird science. We can get them all back, and we could enter the TB team. What if we could have an all-time great team, and we would enter it and it heard that? Johnny Buckets is on the team, but what if we could bring back the all-time greats in their prime and put them on Heard That? Would we do that? Absolutely we would do that. So that's my team. That's my starting five. John Taft, Skip Henderson, Hassan Whiteside. I need somebody in the middle that's just going to reject junk. I'm going to get Tavion. I'm going to get Johnny. Johnny Buckets is in there. And I got to find a spot for Shaq Johnson. I need some heart on this team. See, the greatest basketball player of all time, Marshall, statistically, he's up there in the conversation for one of the all-time greats. Is he the very greatest? No, but I wouldn't have a team without him. So that's my one. I'll scratch anybody else, but that's my one there on that team. What's your team? Who's your favorites look like? Tell me in the post. If you're listening to this on the podcast, tell me on X who's your team going to be. If you are listening to the show, you can text it in 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Who's going to be your all-time football team? Who's going to be your all-time basketball team? We got a lot to get into tomorrow. You know this thing's coming out where the NCAA Rules Committee is meeting next week. They're going to discuss to permit schools to display corporate logos on fields and possibly patches the jerseys. It's the soccerfication of college athletics. We're going to get to the point where the school logo is going to be off that thing, and we're going to have it's going to be like soccer. We'll have like Xbox on the front or PlayStation. What is it, Seattle Sounders? They have the Xbox logo. They still have that there? I'm looking at the intern. He's like, who do you think I am? I'm not the soccer intern. I'm not that guy. Ryan Serk would have known that. Former Marshall soccer great. He scored a penalty against Clemson. That's his claim to fame and this show. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Hope you have fun. If you didn't, we'll do better tomorrow. Until then, have a great night.
Retransmitting in Glorious FM on 94.1 W227BS Huntington. This is 930 WRVC Huntington, celebrating 100 years of broadcasting.